It's almost laughable when you think about just how deeply and quickly generative AI has made its way into virtually every corner of our lives, right? But here's the thing, I'm not against generative AI in principle. While I know myself well enough to say that creating a photo or a video just by typing a string of words doesn't really appeal to me, I can also appreciate that it appeals to many others. And if this is the thing that makes you feel more creative, then that's a big win in my book. Also, I'm not the sort of photographer who will say that generative AI has no place in my editing workflow because there are dozens of videos on this channel that prove otherwise. I've said many times that generative AI tools like GenRemove and GenExpand have done miracles in terms of salvaging lots of my photos. And that's why I'm totally on board with having these sorts of tools in Lightroom, as well as Adobe Camera Raw. With that said, I also believe that authenticity and transparency are as critical in this entire workflow as the generative tools themselves. That's why I'm so proud of the efforts that Adobe continues to make by advancing the scalability, reliability, and convenience of ACA or Adobe Content Authenticity, and the ease in which you can add and manage your own content credentials. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how content credentials works, how you can use it right within Lightroom, and how to manage them on the line. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so normally I start in Lightroom, but today we're going to start at the Adobe Content Authenticity website. The URL for that is contentauthenticity.adobe.com. Now, for the duration of the video, I'm not going to keep saying Adobe Content Authenticity. I'm just going to call it ACA. And you would go to the ACA website to either add, view, or manage your content credentials. That's the whole point, is content credentials. That's what this video is about. Content credentials is, think of it like, you ever pick up a box of cereal, for example, and you look on the side of the box and there's this section called nutritional facts. And it tells you very clearly what is in the cereal. Well, the calories, how many carbs, how much sugar, how much fiber, all that stuff. And of course, the ingredients. What is this thing made of? This same principle can be applied to auditing and being more transparent with the edits that you apply to your photos, specifically if you use generative AI. And this is why I'm such a big fan of it, and I want to dedicate an entire video just to walking you through how it works. So the first thing that I would recommend doing is, obviously, you'll sign in. You can see I'm signed in up here with my Adobe ID, and then go to Preferences, this link right over here. And you'll see here, I've enabled all of the different content credentials that I want to bake into my photos. So the first thing I did was, if you have a LinkedIn ID and you verified yourself there, you could verify your name here. So this gives you a bit more credibility. So there you can see my name. And then here you can see these various social media accounts that I have connected. So Behance, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then also, this is currently, as you can see here, an experimental feature, but there is a switch here that you could turn on to request that generative AI models not train on or use my content. Now, specifically talking about the Adobe Firefly models, I'm not talking about all the third-party models, but Adobe's Firefly models, those are commercially safe. We do not train them on your photos or your videos. And we have a very, very clear terms of use if you want to learn more about that, which I'll link to below. And so once you've got your different pieces of information linked in, you can see this try dot over here. You can either re-verify or remove. Here, same thing, you can refresh or disconnect. And that's basically what I would do right now. That's the first thing I would recommend doing, is just setting your preferences there. There's also another place that you can add your preferences, and that is right within Lightroom. So here is Lightroom Desktop. This is version 9.2. If I go to Preferences up here, I'll go ahead and click on Export, and you will see here there are content credentials. Now, similar to the website, you can see there is the producer, which is me, the connected accounts, as well as the edits and activity. Now, this is obviously very important. Like, if you're using content credentials with Lightroom, you probably want to have this turned on. But then there's this dropdown, which I kind of skipped over, that I want to talk about. The content credentials, they have to be stored somewhere, right? You can store them in one of three places, or technically two places and a combination of the two. So you can either attach the credentials into the photo, kind of like a digital fingerprint, so to speak. You can also store a copy of the content credentials in the ACA cloud, or you can do both, which is what I do. So you can see here, if I drop down as far as the storage method, you can either attach it to the file, you could just publish it to the content credentials cloud, or you could go ahead and do both, which again, I just feel like might as well. There's this checkbox over here as well, where if you enable this, I'll show you what this means, where it says, when using an export shortcut, apply content credentials. So if I have this enabled, let me go ahead and click on done. What that means is when I go to the share button here, you'll see that there are these two shortcuts here to create either a small or a large full-size JPEG. Because I have that checkbox enabled, you'll see the criteria shows content credentials. So when I export this file, Lightroom will automatically apply content credentials. If I turn that off, you wouldn't see content credentials over here. Now, here's a very important point that currently, as of now, this is, we're at the end of February 2026, content credentials with Lightroom can only be applied to JPEG files. So if you try, for example, here, watch, I'll go to custom settings. You can see I have JPEG as my export type, and then you can see down here content credentials. If I change this to, say, PNG, you see that that section goes away. So if you want to work with content credentials, you're going to work with JPEGs, which I think is kind of, that's fine. I think for the most part, we're exporting JPEGs when we're sharing. So I don't think it's that much of a friction that's being added. But for now, just so you know, it's JPEG only. All right. Let me cancel out of here. And I have this photo here for a specific reason, because obviously this is not the original photo. If I hit the backslash key, you can see this was the straight out of camera photo. And as you can see, I used generative remove quite liberally to get rid of these people and the cones and a few other kind of areas here. So if I press backslash again, you can see that is the edited photo. Of course, if we go to the remove section over here, you can see if I click on the mute icon, I used gen remove over here. So you can kind of toggle between those. And so the first thing that I want to do is show you what happens. Let's say you don't want to use content credentials in Lightroom. Let's say you have a photo that, was never in Lightroom, but you still want to apply content credentials to it. Well, you can do that using the ACA website that I showed you at the beginning of this video. So I'm going to simulate that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to just go to share. I'll go to custom settings here. And I'm going to disable content credentials over here. I'm just going to turn the checkbox off. And I'm just going to save a small 2048 pixel JPEG. I'm going to click on export, and let's save that to the desktop. All right. So you can see on the desktop, there is my photo, the JPEG that I just exported. So this photo does not have any content credentials. How do I know that? Well, if I go here to the ACA website, there's a link called inspect. This is going to be your best friend, because this is going to tell you if an image has content credentials, what they are. So let's go ahead and click on browse. Here is my photo. I'm going to click upload. And you can see no content credentials found. Now, what you could do is search for possible matches. So I can click over here, and you can see that no other similar photos were found in the content credentials cloud. And so at this point, you can say, well, all right, I've got this photo. It clearly doesn't have any content credentials, but I want to add them. I want to add my name as the creator. I want to add my socials. And so this is how to do that. So let's go ahead. We're going to click on apply. And right here on the left, you can see that these are it kind of even looks like a nutritional facts label, doesn't it? I just noticed that actually just now. And so I'm going to say, you know what? I want all of these turned on. And you can even see a preview over here of what that'll look like. So this is what your content credentials will look like. Of course, you can re-edit that. But now it's time to go ahead and select files. Let's go ahead and select that JPEG and click on upload. And then you'll click on apply. And you can see that ACA is now signing the photo. Now, if you look at the thumbnail, you'll see that there is this little CR badge on the thumbnail, and that stands for content credentials. Now, here's an important point. This photo is now part of your ACA kind of cloud library, but it does not store the original. Like, you can't come back here in the future to download this 2048 pixel JPEG from your ACA library. It's storing a low res thumbnail with your content credentials, which is why it's really important. That says right here, Adobe won't store these files to download later. Download them now to publish. So let's go ahead and click on download. And so if we go over here, here's my downloads folder. I'm going to drag this right here. And there is the photo with the content credentials. So now we have the original. Remember, this didn't have any content credentials. This photo, we manually applied content credentials using the ACA website. So let's go over here and let's inspect it. Just like before, I'm going to browse. This time I'm going to select the one with content credentials and click on upload. Now you can see we actually have content credentials. So here you can see this is the information. It has links to this. Will take me to my LinkedIn profile. Same thing with this, as well as my social media. So you can see how this could be a nice thing. You can see also that I requested that generative AI models not train using my content. And then you can see more information. So this really is kind of like a nutritional facts label here with all of the information. But this is not even close to what you will get if you use content credentials from within Lightroom. So let's go to Lightroom here. Same photo. This time I'm going to go to share. We'll go to custom settings again, except now I'm going to enable apply content credentials. So we're going to get the same exact JPEG. It's just going to have content credentials that are going to be baked into the photo and uploaded to the cloud. So I'm going to click on export one photo. Let's save it here again. And then you can see if we go to the desktop, there is the photo. And again, this is effectively the exact same photo here. The key difference is this does not have content credentials. This one does. And of course, this one is the photo that we manually added content credentials. Now, before we move on, the thing that I want to tell you why I really love content credentials, aside from the obviousness that it makes things more transparent and it kind of allows you to prove authenticity, is that it's durable. So you can't strip it out of the photo. If someone downloads the photo from somewhere and tries to upload it again, those credentials will be durable and it will stick with the photo. I think this is fantastic. Okay, so now let's go back to the ACA website and we're going to go inspect again. And this time we're going to inspect this photo. Remember, this is the one we just exported that has content credentials that were added with Lightroom, not with the ACA website. Let's go and click on upload. And now you can see a few things that are different. First, you can see that there are two thumbnails here because Lightroom also embedded a low-res preview of the original unedited photo. And then if we go to the right here and we scroll down, here's some more very important information. This is why I love doing this with Lightroom because first, remember I said I use GenRemove. GenRemove is a generative AI tool. So you can see it says AI info. This content was partially AI edited, made with Adobe Firefly because in case you don't know, GenRemove and distracting people removal, those two tools in Lightroom, those use Adobe Firefly. So that's the model that was used for the GenRemove functionality, which is reflected over here. Also, it shows that the app was Lightroom 9.2, and then it gives you this list here of things that were done to the photo. Now, it's not like this exhaustive list where it says exposure was increased to 0.3 or anything like that, but it gives you a high-level overview of the things that were done here. And then at the very bottom, it shows ingredients. So it's showing you if I used other images to composite this, they would be here under the ingredients. But because I just used the original photo along with generative remove, those are the primary components. There are no other photos or images to be part of the ingredients. But it gets even better. So there are things you can do, like you could zoom in over here. You can use two fingers to swipe up and down. You can pan around here. And of course, you can click on fit. That'll zoom out to fit. But it also gets fun when you click on compare. So with compare, what I can do is, you'll see here is the edited photo, and then it says, well, what do you want to compare it to? So I'll go ahead and click on the original, which is fine. You can kind of see them up and down, comparing them. But I'm going to go ahead and drop down here and select slider. And this is where things get kind of fun because now what I can do is I can drag left and right and you can see the actual areas that I removed. So I'm using GenRemove. You can see the stylization that I applied to the photo. You can also notice that this is very, very low res. So you don't have to worry about your full res images being uploaded. but it does give you a good enough idea in terms of auditing what's going on. And that's the most important thing, because if I were to send you this JPEG, if I were to email it to you, if I were to message it to you, you can take it and you can open it up in the ACA website, the inspector, and you can see for yourself exactly what I did. That's the kind of transparency and authenticity that I'm talking about, that I am totally with. Like, I've never been one to pretend like, oh, no, that was straight out of camera. There were no people there. There were no cones there. No, I have no problems using these tools, because the places where I share them, it's not like I'm sharing them to a contest where that prohibits AI, or I'm a photojournalist that also prohibits AI. I'm just sharing it for my own pleasure, for people to enjoy. So I have absolutely no truck with using these tools at all. But at the same time, I like that if you want to kind of interrogate the photo, you can. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is this link called Manage. So Manage shows you all of the photos that have content credentials applied in your account, regardless of the source. So as you can see here, pretty much all of my photos have content credentials on export. They're all JPEGs using Lightroom. But here is that one photo that I applied content credentials directly with ACA. And the reason why I want to show this to you is because let's say you're like, you know what, I don't want my content credentials in the cloud anymore. I'm okay with them being embedded in my photo locally, but I don't need them in the cloud anymore. Well, you can go ahead and you can click on this trash icon. You'll get this warning dialog, and then you can click on delete and it's gone. Of course, if you want, you can select multiple images and delete them using this link right over here. But what you can also do is, as you can see here, all of the photos that I exported are here, or I should say all of the photos that I exported with content credentials are here. And let's say I go to this one, you'll see this link here. That's going to inspect the photo. So when I open it, you can see it launch the inspector. Here is the original. Here is the edited, and a few things I want to show you. This one was edited using Lightroom Mobile. That is a Lightroom Mobile version number. You can see I didn't use any AI over here. And just like before, if I click on the compare icon, let's select the original, you can see here, this is the edited photo, and you can see the original, like how I cropped in and how I rotated. I think that's fantastic. You can see how I deepened the shadows, and I added a bit of a sun glow up here that was not there. So again, you can interrogate this and just see for yourself what the creator did for their asset. All right, so this outro is going to be a little bit longer, but I hope you stick around because I've got a question. Leave your answer in the comments if you don't mind. Let's say you didn't know ACA existed. You didn't know Adobe Content Authenticity, or maybe you went into your preferences in Lightroom and you're like, I don't know what content credentials are. I'm not touching it. I want nothing to do with it. Now that you know what it is, does it warm you up at all to the idea of generative AI? What I mean by that is you have a resource in Lightroom that will add all of this stuff, this digital invisible watermark that is durable. You can't remove it. And it tracks who you are as the creator, what your relevant social media links are, and also what you did to the photo, including whether you used any generative AI. Knowing that, does that make things a little bit easier? I know for me it does. Like I love, and I said this before, I'm very proud of Adobe for this Adobe Content Authenticity site, as well as content credentials, like pushing it forward. And in fact, I really wish camera manufacturers and smartphone manufacturers would step up to the plate in a bigger way. I think right now, really, Leica might be one of the only ones in a handful, maybe one or two of their cameras, where you can actually create the content credentials at the time of creating the photo. And that to me is where we need to go. Like as soon as you create the photo, a content credential should be applied to the photo. You open it up in Lightroom, Lightroom recognizes it, you make your edits, and it adds to that, to the recipe, to your nutritional facts. I hope we go down this road because I think, as photographers, we appreciate this kind of transparency, and by making it easier and more accessible, it'll, I think, more or less normalize generative AI in the context of photo editing. I said this before, I'm not really into using text prompts to create photos, but you can pry gen remove from my cold dead hand. Like, I love gen remove. Don't ever take that away. I don't care that it's generative AI. It's so good. Same thing with gen expand. Same thing with distracting people removal. These are all generative tools powered by Firefly, and they are critical as part of my editing workflow. So I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with adding my content credentials so that you can go ahead and you can be like, oh, did Brian use Gen AI? Yeah, it's right over there. So with that, again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Very, very interested in this. I'm sure many people at Adobe are very interested in what you think about this. And tell us, the good, the bad, the ugly. Share it with us. Of course, content credentials is just a tiny little part of Lightroom. And then again, it's available in the Lightroom desktop, it's available in Lightroom mobile and Lightroom web. But if you want to learn the full breadth of all three of those surfaces, please check out my course called Lightroom Everywhere. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. I've also got this entire playlist here full of Lightroom tutorials. So if you want to check those out, or you can see what YouTube thinks you might like, as always, a thumbs up is greatly appreciated, as is clicking on the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified of all future videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.